All good. Need some art back here.
What's up, cannabis community? I'm Brent Green, and this is your cannabis news. Let's see here. Can I get the so? And see, this is your cannabis news, and today is the eve of one of America's favorite lying-ass holidays. And I hope you're staying masked up as always. Yes. Okay, y'all. So clearly, as you can see here, we have a guest today. And yes, friends, it's been a minute since we've last spoken. We've had some program changes. Cannabis News is only on Wednesdays now at 5 p.m. Pacific on all three live streaming platforms: YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Be sure to follow us over there as well. Okay, so today, as you can see, right here, right there, whichever, we have a guest. Her name is Verushka, and she's on the East Coast, and she's one of my dear stoner friends from the past. Verushka, tell us a little bit about yourself and your stoner life.
Sure. So I have been a cannabis lover since my days at the University of Texas. And in fact, I remember this distinct moment. I don't know if you ever saw the Smurfs, but there was a scene in the Smurfs where Gargamel was about to capture the Smurfs so that he could eat them. And he was making this stew with onions and carrots and parsley. And it just looked so delicious and good. And for whatever reason, in my mind, that I likened that moment to damn, I really love a sack right now. And so basically from that moment on, I've been a stoner. I'd smoked a little bit in high school and enjoyed it for sure. It was a little harsh because we were smoking out of those bullshit ass metal pipes. But when I got to college, that's when I really started to have a major love of cannabis. And I remember going to Spider House. I don't remember if you remember Spider House, but I met this dude on one of these old school websites, BBS boards, who basically linked up with me and just showed me, a mason jar full of blueberry bud. And it was just kind of so that was kind of the holy grail ever since, was just always trying to find great bud no matter where I was at. So if I was in Barcelona, New York, Colorado, California, the goal was always to try to find really great bud. And I remember meeting you actually smoking a J in the back of my apartment with my girlfriend at the time, and you walking by and just basically just being like, what's up? As was this vibe and the style of Austin at the time. And so, one, two, skip a few, we're here in the middle of a pandemic. And that has still been the thing that has been my saving grace, is to be able to, get some sleep, to be able to kind of get some perspective and insight. The flower cannabis has always been my friend.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's try to get into one of these stories here, because the first story pertains to the East Coast and the term, the green wave, I guess is what it is now. So our first story, y'all, as you can see here, it says Grow Generation CEO says New Jersey is a gateway to weed legalization on the East Coast. So we're going to check out this article, we're going to check out this video here up until the point that the dudes start getting too advertising. But listen to, now this is on syndicated news, y'all. We've come a long way. Well, now.
All right, so first, Dan, I want to ask you just philosophically. It looks like that when marijuana is on the ballot, when cannabis in any form is on, it always seems to win. So isn't it inevitable that our nation's going to embrace it?
I certainly think so, Jim. The election was a big victory for the cannabis industry and Grow Generation. It's invigorating to see cannabis initiatives pass in 5 states. The green sweep. 1/3 of Americans live in places where cannabis is legal for adults. The beginning of a huge paradigm shift. GrowGen is prepared to outfit new operators with everything they need for cultivation. We're excited about Arizona, a strong medical market, potential to become a $2 billion market with the addition of recreational cannabis, which is why we entered the state prior to the election.
All right.
New Jersey, another exciting market, Jim.
Well, that's
Gateway
what I want to
New
ask you
York.
about. I mean, New Jersey is huge, right? And you also say in your documents, Pennsylvania and New York have to follow. It can't just be New Jersey, correct?
That is correct. Jersey is another exciting market. Gateway to the Northeast. Scouting locations. Expect to open doors in New Jersey this spring. We believe the rest of the East Coast will follow suit. Legalized very soon. Pennsylvania, your home state. New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Jim.
Wow. Okay, so you just made a gigantic acquisition November 2nd to acquire the Grow Biz. It's the 3rd largest chain.
Okay, so yeah, that's where he starts getting a little too advertising for me. But as you can tell, you all, there is definitely a green wave occurring on the East Coast. Barushka, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So here in New York, you can get cannabis if you're a medical patient, and there are ways to kind of go about that. You can drop $200 to advertise doctors and get an examination. There are specific lists of medical conditions that you can effectively say that you have to be eligible for medical cannabis. However, if you drive across state lines to Massachusetts, there's recreational use there for adults that you're able to take advantage of. And also Vermont and Maine. Sometimes those are a little far afield for folks to be able to drive or to be able to kind of get on via public access, which is to say that you can go to Grand Central and hop on a train and get to Boston and enjoy the fruits of that particular state. But to know here in New York that you can just kind of go across the bridge now and be able to enjoy that benefit is still wonderful. You obviously want it to be able to go down the street and take advantage of that. And I've definitely seen stores in like CBD spots that have popped up in anticipation of New York legalizing cannabis. It's been on the docket periodically and has gotten shot down, but I think that it's only a matter of time, especially given the COVID present and how cash-strapped state governments are going to be. I think a lot of state governments are going to look to cannabis as a way to refill the coffers of their state budgets, the way that Colorado has done, which is to say that by virtue of the cannabis sales in Colorado, they've been able to pay for student lunches, to be able to help, offer up mental health facilities and services, and really just kind of ratchet up the social services because they had that they were flush with cash. In other states like Kentucky, where like the black market of cannabis growers, that's kind of the biggest crop outside of their more conventional crops. And so I think it's really just a matter of time. But here on the East Coast, keeping it to the East Coast, it's great to see that New Jersey has been willing to take that step. And again, hasn't been an easy fight for them as well. This had been coming up for them on the docket to vote consistently and had been shot down. And I think that with the groundswell of young people just getting out the vote in general, when these things came up, it was now that referendum could speak loud and clear about the will of the people in terms of really being able to have access to cannabis. And while I say that it's recreational, you can still benefit medicinally from it by just having the access. And so I think that it's great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to also highlighting Black-owned cannabis dispensaries, as they typically have not gotten the media attention that other dispensary owners have by virtue of the nature of how white supremacy works in the system. We can talk that aside. I think raising up those voices, especially on the fact that this country has simultaneously been legalizing and making cannabis recreational in other instances, but still not expunging people's records for having, I had a joint in '81 and I can't get a job because that's still on my record. And until those two things kind of come into balance, I think that it is doubly important to raise up the cannabis purveyors, the dispensaries and business owners that are of African descent, to say that we're in this game too. To quote you, we've been here.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's what Cannabis News for me is all about. Now, in terms of this article though, right? For me, it's the same thing I've been saying all year. We get caught up praising these former hater states for giving you all a meager versions of legalization when we as a nation are 10 years behind on the subject globally, thereby setting us back further and further on the world stage.
Absolutely. Like if you look at Portugal, who, at this point, almost 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, went to decriminalize some of the harder drugs, but certainly just made it a non-issue for cannabis to be present. And again, what they've seen is a decrease in all the shenanigans that people love to throw at cannabis growers, users, purveyors, et cetera, and say that like, oh, there's different, y'all are overrun with criminality. And then you look, once you open up the window to say like, hey, y'all can do this within these parameters, you find that all those other shenanigans that go around the black market kind of fall away. Now, am I wary of the government over-regulating and having like basically mediocre ass bud be available to me through the state because like it's been state sanctioned? 1,000%. But I'd love to think that America, in its legendary capacity for innovation and capitalism, frankly, that we can find a middle way.
Well, the mediocre bud it's already happening to us. I mean, it's a known fact that backyard boogie 9 times out of 10 is better than the stuff that we're paying $60 an ounce for at the dispensary. But that, I mean, that part is a whole other story. But let's get to this next story though, okay? Mm-hmm. So our next story, hold on, let me find my remote. Our next story is out of SF, and it's something that seems to be becoming a popular renters issue. Yeah, y'all. Yeah. That.
It's a perennial issue. And it looks like SF is trying to make this, like certain landlords are trying to make this a thing where like you can be this is in a non-smoking apartment building. And that also includes cannabis, which means if you had some hating ass neighbor that, got a whiff in the hallway coming off the elevator, that they could blow up your spot, quite literally.
Yeah, I've had this happen to me, but let me get into this article a little bit, and I'll tell y'all a little bit about that story, okay? Okay, so as you can see here, the article is courtesy of the SFist, by the way, and the article says, the headline says, San Francisco may try to ban cigarette and, in quotes, pot smoking inside of apartments. Now, a new nanny state ordinance coming from the Board of Supervisors proposes banning all smoking, including vapes and cannabis smoking, in apartment buildings of more than 3 units. You'd best believe this won't pass easily, at least the pot smoking part. The proposed ordinance is the last to come from the termed out District 7 Supervisor Norman Yee, and as the Examiner reports, the board's Public Safety and Neighborhood Services Committee voted Thursday to bring it to a full board vote on December 1st. OMG, y'all, this is intense. In quotes here, we are discussing the right of our residents to breathe clean air, said Yee per the Examiner. And he's not willing to make broad exceptions for the city's considerable community of, in quotes, marijuana fans. Man, y'all, this is pretty intense. The first thing that comes to mind here is that in SoCal, this is a really popular thing. This is a very popular issue for renters in SoCal. Of course, as we know, these type of regulations are aimed at low-income renters. And from what I've observed, 100%. In Southern California, you can't even smoke on the property at all, y'all. You want to weigh in on this, Verushka?
I think that that's unenforceable, ultimately. I think that precisely because there is, and I quote, a considerable community of marijuana fans, it is impossible to simultaneously find tenants and that will stay and that aren't going to smoke. I think that
I'm sorry.
You can sit here and put that on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the thing that comes to mind is when you say that, you do realize that in Southern California, all over Southern California, this is in their leases, and there are devices in the vents that can detect smoke in the building in the unit and they can.
There are devices, which is to say that, like, Big Brother, it doesn't have like a spy cam. He's literally got like some sort of electronic sniffer in every apartment.
Hey, player, I seen it with my own eyes. You cannot smoke. You can't smoke anything on the property.
Okay, so you were talking, and again, I've never lived in California, so like this is certainly new to me. But as somebody who would consider living out in Cali, especially because of how friendly it is to recreational cannabis smokers, am I to understand that, like, even if I was using like a smoke buddy or some other fucking rowdy ass contraption that's out there to be able to kind of be more discreet in one's consumption, that this thing is going to somehow capture that, or that more importantly, somebody, be it a tobacco smoker or a cannabis smoker that knows their way around engineering and tinkering with shit, hasn't figured out a way about how to hack these things?
I mean, look, we can hack things all day long. But as stoners, we've grown up, right? Last I checked, we paid $450 for a Puffco. So, beyond that, they have legislation written for us, and sometimes sounds like it's for us, but be against us. But the point I'm making here is that, we're not in college anymore. So why are we, being
so heavily regulated? And I think that, like, that statement by Mr. Yee, the District 7 supervisor, is totally lopsided. We're discussing the right of our residents to breathe clean air. Cool. If I'm paying, and y'all pay outrageous rents out in Southern California, so if I'm paying $3,000 for a one bedroom that's under 1,000 square feet, in a building that has likely more than 3 apartments, there's no way that you're going to be able to sit here and regulate my behavior inside of that space, independent of whether or not I'm a cannabis consumer, a tobacco consumer, or if I'm, snorting a rail or doing something even shadier. Because frankly, and again, when you create these kinds of little ordinances and things like that, you're right, it does absolutely target low income folks, but it's also trying to be like a money generator for that district, right? Like, it's basically trying to like run up on people being like, we know, here's your $500 fine. And like, frankly, I think that there are too many considerable community marijuana fans for this to actually work. And I'd say either by virtue of showing up at town halls, or just by sheer, just like, man, it can't happen. So yeah, there's plenty of things in the lease. In my previous lease, it said that there was no smoking in the apartment. Main thing that we did, you know what I mean? So like, it's, how are you gonna, but to hear that they've got these little devices that can prove it, that's kind of diabolical. But I'd say that the likelihood that this could be get on the books and like stay on the books, to me, is slim. So I'm rooting for y'all that y'all can get rid of this nonsense.
I don't know. Like, I'm rooting for them too, but from, when you say San Francisco is, what y'all say, cannabis friendly and everything, or at the Bay, yes, it is put on as such. However, I'll just be blunt, y'all. The Bay Area like cocaine.
Okay, and that's all, because and that's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, okay, so you're gonna sit here and pardon my French, crawl up my ass with a flashlight for fucking puffing a joint after work, but you've got Timmy next door doing a rail and God knows what, having a psychotic break behind how much of God knows what he's doing, who throws his shit out the window and causes a whole kerfuffle, which has happened in one of the buildings I've lived in. But again, I'm the problem. Like, get the fuck out of here. Again, pardon my French. I don't know if you're allowed to swear on the show.
No, hey, this is 100% black owned, independently owned and operated, so we can say what the fuck we want to say. Excuse me, Mom. I'm sorry, I know you watching. Excuse me. Anyways, but I'm gonna tell y'all this story, right? I'm gonna tell y'all, because I told y'all earlier, I'm gonna tell y'all the story. Well, I lived in this building that was California and Arguello, NSF, on the western side of the park. Anyways, we had just moved in. It was like over there, it's real fancy on that side of town. And we moved in, and yeah, our lease said the same thing about the smoking, right? Well, on my day off, I'm like burning hard, like, as usual. Later
One
in the
wants to
day,
do, right?
later on in the day, like at around 5, 6 o'clock, y'all, I promise to God, like this on everything. This lady knocking on my door, my neighbor, and she was like, "Hi, I'm your neighbor, and I just got home from work, and I can smell it in the lobby. I can smell you in the lobby." Like going off, yo. Call the landlord and everything, man. So, hey, SF is snootier than you think.
But I'd also say that that is what you're talking about seems like a symptom of a larger issue that's going on in SF that I've heard native San Franciscans lamenting. Is it like, it is not the San Francisco I either grew up in or that I moved to 15, 20 years ago. And you could sit here and say it's the tech boom or whatever. Really, it's just an influx of cash because, okay, fine, the tech boom's there, but the people chasing that money, that are chasing that clout, all those folks showed up with like the same bougie, socialization that they had back home in Ohio or Iowa or wherever the fuck they came from. And like now, like they want to clutch their pearls about something that's kind of enmeshed in the culture of San Francisco. You don't think of San Francisco and think, pearl clutching Karen being like, I can smell it in the lobby. What you think about are fools sitting on Russian Hill or sitting in that, gorgeous park, puffing and having a sesh, hacky sacking, playing the Beatles on guitar, doing whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's not. So what I'm hearing is that like really this is a symptom of gentrification that's like directly affecting cannabis consumers and smokers and fans and aficionados.
Well, agreed. The cannabis industry, however, is suffering from its own gentrification as well. So the term gentrification is prevalent throughout all of our conversations of today for the most part, but not to get too far off on that. I will say gentrification was the last thing I would have associated as being synonymous with SF. But really cocaine is it. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone, y'all. Let's get to
that word.
I'm gonna get to our next.
And that's real. Oh, go ahead. No, forgive me. I know you got to get to your next thing. Forgive me.
Because I'm gonna get to the next story. So our next story, y'all, is out of Texas, Verushka.
Welcome. But it looks like it's more about like what we've been contending with for as long as we've lived in Texas. Is that like every year I've been hearing about this, since the early 2000s. Oh, it's on the docket. But so long as the good old boys, again, with their pearl clutching conservative ass values that really are disingenuous and frankly rooted in white supremacy, you're never going to see cannabis in the state of Texas until you get rid of all those cats.
Well, until they get desperate enough for money.
Right.
Let's check out this article here. It says, in economic crisis, per what we were just talking about, Texas Democrats push to legalize, in quotes, marijuana. Key Republicans likely stand in the way. State lawmakers argue that the tax revenue and jobs created by a retail market for cannabis could help the state devastated by the coronavirus pandemic. Let's see here. With a state budget devastated by the coronavirus, some Democratic lawmakers are hoping the economic crisis could become an opportunity to coax Texas, the biggest hater state in the game, into joining a growing number of states optimizing to legalize and tax recreational, in quotes, marijuana use. The chances are slim.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think part of it, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Excuse me.
I was just saying that part of it absolutely is kind of like the natural culture of conservatism in Texas. But I'd also say that the folks that typically are going to stymie this don't have a dog in this race because they're not suffering from the economic crisis, right? Their constituents are, or a portion of their constituents are that they don't really give a shit about. Not the ones that are writing those big donor checks. Those aren't the folks that are doing it. What really needs to happen, and I think that this is how any of this stuff moves, is what you need are big low-key donors that are hella stoners on the low that are like, fuck it, it's time, and I'm willing to invest. But here, more than that, I know that I need to grease the wheels in some other arena. And so, yeah, let me go ahead and make a donation and then sit you down and talk your ear off about why this is the thing. And until that happens, really, that's the angle. You got to find some good old boy that's a hardcore stoner that'd be willing to put his money where his mouth is in terms of donating to causes.
Well, nowadays, yeah, they more and more of them getting their pockets lined by them cannabis leaves. So, you know, but here let me put my take on this whole thing here. But you know, the most striking thing to me, I find it funny how COVID-45 can turn haters into believers. Texas, I don't care what you do, you'll always be the biggest hater state in the game. Infinite, okay?
Damn, sounds personal.
What did you say? It sound personal?
Yeah, no, like that. But I know I can dig that. You know what I mean? Like, I love Texas through and through, but I also know that some of my favorite activities I can't do there because, as you've offered, it's a hating ass state. You know what I mean? If I go anywhere outside of Austin, anywhere outside of Houston, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally your ass. Like Williamson County, not but half an hour down the road on I-35. It's a whole other landscape as a cannabis smoker. Once you get into Williamson County, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah, believe me, I know it all real well. I know all the nightmares I've had the past 15 years to unravel, all of the mental health strain that it caused me being a stoner there, growing cannabis there. Also, I mean, like you said at the very beginning of this, one of the biggest insults that that Texas offers to its residents is this constant. We're going to legalize in 10 years. We're going to legalize in 10 years. You know, before you know it, our generation will be gone.
Right. No, I agree 1,000%. Like, I mean, you look how long it took for Michigan to get to legalizing recreational cannabis use. That took, specifically Ann Arbor and perhaps a little bit of Detroit or whatever, pushing hard for years. And again, I think that like half the battle is getting older, rich stoners to come out of the woodwork and put their money where their mouth is to actually move this, even if it's just to line their pockets. Like that's what drives and moves this country, is the opportunity to line your pockets even further. So why not leverage that to our own end? And again, like I feel like even when you, not to totally nerd out, but when you think about how revolutions successfully do their thing, it's not that all of us are on the main, front lines tossing Molotov cocktails. There are folks that are absolutely born for that moment. There's other folks that are born to be able to kind of like create a structure around how you're going to like make the revolution look administratively. And there are folks that are the charisma people, right? The people person that can go out and kind of move the people towards what you're trying to do. And I think that that's kind of how this stoner movement needs to think about this. There's going to be folks on the front line doing what they need to be doing, but we also need to go find those folks in other arenas that some of us might not have access to by virtue of class, race, or whatever, to be able to have that conversation so that we can move the wheels simultaneously in all of those places. Agreed.
Now, for our last few minutes here, I want to definitely say thank you for joining us today. I also want to let you all know out there that this episode is not Freaky Friday. It's actually Whoopsie Wednesday. So sorry about that, y'all. Anyways, Verushka, you're actually my first Black lady guest on Cannabis News. So congrats to you. Congrats to all the Black ladies out there.
No, and that's, it's funny. Like I am trying to bring up this channel, come up with my own channel called The Green Guidebook, where I highlight cannabis purveyors and growers that are of African descent. But ultimately, it's born of this idea that I don't always see me in these spaces doing this, even though I've been an avid stoner for a very long time. I still don't see folks that look like me doing stuff like this, having these kinds of conversations and bringing, what makes being a stoner so great and unique to the table. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to check this out. And like, if you guys, thank you.
Hey, anytime, Verushka. But you know why you don't see this any Black stoners in the cannabis sphere, like representing in the media and everything? It's because they all locked up.
Word.
I don't know where to laugh or cry at that. Anyway,
I think that it's real. That's totally real. So it's for those folks, we should be doing it for them too.
Yeah, I'm here for them. I speak for my mother and everybody else out there. Anyways, y'all, Verushka, I want to thank you again. You have a beautiful, beautiful holiday season, and I look forward to having you on as a guest very soon. I'm gonna go ahead. Hold on. I'm gonna say goodbye to y'all from right here, just like this. Is there anything you want to say before I close out?
I would say I'm trying to get this thing, the Green Guidebook, started and off the ground. I've got a busted little Instagram page that I'm trying to get going. So if you want to give that a follow or just some suggestions, that's great. I also have another YouTube channel called Verushka On, where that's, again, opportunity to kind of like talk about all of these things. So find me on Instagram at Banta Black, find me on YouTube at Verushka On, and up and coming, the Green Guidebook. I'd love to hear from folks, and certainly want to keep building community and be in community with folks that are like-minded. So thank you again for the opportunity and the introduction.
Yeah, Verushka, like I said, player, we're going to have you back for sure. I like your energy and I like your enthusiasm for the game. But with that being said, I'm about to say goodbye to y'all. So here we go. Y'all ready for me to give y'all a proper outro? Here we go. So y'all, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you have fun and are being safe with your families and loved ones going tomorrow for the holiday. If you're smart, you'll stay at home and make your own food. Anyway.
Exactly. Catering works. Put that mask on.
Yes, yes. Anyways, y'all, remember, friends, to always be safe out there, and that Greenie Man loves you, okay? I'm Brent Green, and this has been your Cannabis News.
Stay tuned.